Dave, you look lonely down there.
What's that?
I said you look lonely down there.
Good evening and welcome to the Finance Committee. Today is the 17th day of April 2024. We do have two members that may be late or not able to attend the finance meeting due to other obligations, Mr. Neff and Ms. Cooper, but we do have a quorum. So Daryl, if I could get a roll call.
Mr. Grumney?
Yes, here.
Mayor St. John?
I'm here.
Mr. Capel?
Here.
Ms. Strayer?
Yes, here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
And as the chair noted, Mrs. Cooper and Mr. Neff are not present at the moment.
Okay, we had our last meeting was back on March 20th and we have some minutes to approve. So
Motion to approve.
thank you. And get a second on that. All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Strayer?
Yes,
Mr. Capel?
Abstain.
Mr. Grumney?
Yes.
And Mayor St. John?
Yes.
4 yeas.
All right, I think that moves us to new and unfinished business, and it looks like we have a relatively light agenda this evening, which is can be a good thing. So I think media services, Daryl, are you gonna
Yes.
hit that one? Okay.
Yes. So we've come to the end of our original agreement with Joey Thomas and Thomsonian Media LLC, doing business as Joey T Media. So in your packet is a proposal to continue that service that I wanted to bring in front of the Finance Committee this evening. It's a little bit, as a reminder, Mr. Thomas has been providing media, branding, communications services to the city now for just a little over a year. I did ask him to do, and at the bottom of that page with the proposal, you do have a list of the products that were produced in the last year and some of the other assets that he's been able to gather for us, at least media assets that he's gathered for us that'll have some life beyond the original contract as well. So that's one thing. Just want to give you a sense of the videos, the photos, the graphic design and communications work that he did. Like I said, though, this proposal is a little bit different than the previous proposal. In the previous budget, we had basically a retainer arrangement with Mr. Thomas. In this proposal, he and I have both talked about and basically making this a time and materials proposal. So what you have here is a per hour price, an estimated cost per month, but which is just slightly below the total spending that we would have done or that we did in the prior year. So, and it fits within the amount of funding that we've budgeted for this activity going forward. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Is there a way to attach a not to exceed comment in the contract?
I can do that. Yeah, we're not going to act on it this evening.
Right, but if he got to a point where he had spent the whole month and he needed to do something else, we don't want to just give him a blank check.
Right.
So if we had a not to exceed, and then he could come back for an additional if he needed to.
Yep. Can we make that a not to exceed for the year though? I mean, because there may be some months in which either the activity is a little bit heavier than in other months. So in some ways,
that's fine.
we just need to manage it from a staff
We need to
perspective.
just have a number there somewhere that says that's where it is.
Okay. Yeah, and as I was, the final point I was going to make is, so this time and material kind of approach, although he doesn't have a material price on here, mostly a time estimate on here, really will be it'll be incumbent upon staff to basically be able to define a little bit more the project itself, kind of, the parameters of what's expected. Right now, it's not been uncommon for us to ask Mr. Thomas to attend an event, maybe get some footage, and we may use it for some purpose in the future. Now, I think we just had to be a little bit more conscious of kind of when we're sending him out, what we're trying to accomplish, and what that content would be used for. So, but again, he's indicated that his interest in doing it that way as well. So, so the proposal is brought to you this evening just for informational purposes. Assuming that we're generally comfortable, I'll add the not to exceed language. Assuming we're generally comfortable with this, I think we'd like to bring it in front of council at the next meeting.
Any questions?
I think the value of this in the last year was Absolutely spot on. He did great work. I was really happy with it. I wonder if, along with this, if we can drive some kind of metric tracking to see what kind of eyes we actually have on the product too.
Mhm.
Like, you know, how many views it gets on YouTube, et cetera, so that we can kind of keep track of this as time goes on too, because that'll be a good performance indicator for.
Yeah, I'm sure that information is available. We just
Yeah.
haven't really compiled it in a way
Mhm.
that's meaningful, so that we'll work on that. That's a great suggestion.
Any other comments or questions? I think he does great work. I think he's done a good thing for the city and really bringing some recognition and every video I've seen, I think he just really represents the city well. So I think he does a good job.
Pretty wild to think that he just started a year ago.
Mhm.
I mean, it's,
Yeah.
he did a lot of great content last
That
year.
4th of July video. It's awesome. That
Yeah.
was- yeah.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions or comments, thank you. And we'll go ahead and I believe we'll move on to the year-to-date comparison reports. Ms. Stefan.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Finance Committee. In your packet, you have the typical revenue and expenditure variance reports year-to-date through the month of March. Before we get into these, I'd like to comment that all March fund balances for every fund have been reviewed and monitored, and all are in compliance with the city's cash reserve policy. Starting with the year-to-date revenue report, I would just like to draw your attention to a few items here on page 5 of your packet. The very top line, the real estate property tax. We did receive our first half distribution. Any of you who aren't aware, these are semi-annual distributions that are received from the county. And we received $351,000, a little over $351,000 in March. And that was roughly 62% of what we budgeted for the year. I do expect an additional $351,000 to be received in October. And that would put our year-to-date receipts at above what we budgeted by $136,000. So that's a good thing. The income tax, the third line down there, is right on track. As you recall, we budgeted $4.8 million for the year, and we are right on track to receive that as of this point. Same with the local government funds. We are on track to receive that $120,000. Down about 3/4 of the way down your page in interest income. I seem to talk about this every month, but we have already exceeded the annual budget just through March. I'll talk a little bit more about the percentages and the yields that we've been receiving when I move on to the bank and book reconciliations. On the next page of your revenue report, page 6 of your packet, just like to draw your attention to the impact fees. As you know, we have 4 impact fee funds: police, municipal building, roads, and parks and rec. All 4 of those have been trending high for the year. So I do expect those to beat out the budget before the year is over. And you'll notice in Fund 208, the TIF Tax Revenue Fund, this is a new fund. We did not budget anything for this because I wasn't sure if we were going to receive anything for this TIF this year. This is for the 1804, 1808 properties. Just received the notification in the latter half of 2023 that TIF had been approved. So we are starting to see some revenues come in for that. And on the final page of the revenue report, this would be page 7 of your packet. Just want to draw your attention to the sewer fund. We are on track to receive the largest source of revenue in that fund, the customer rent. We budgeted $1.3 million, and we are right on track to receive that. And the sewer tap fund, the sewer tap accounts in that same fund, we are outpacing the budget as of this time. So that is due to the 47 new builds that we've had year to date. And we are looking at all the sewer tap revenue that comes in along with those new builds and those permits. So that's the overview of the revenue. I'll move on to expenses unless there's some questions.
Questions about revenue?
Just refresh my memory on sewer taps that happen in the county service area. So for example, in Berlin Township, Does the city get a portion of the sewer tap fee? Is there an upcharge for the county taps that we receive, or are these purely the ones that go to our wastewater treatment?
Don't know the answer
Yeah,
to that
it's-
question. I don't think we received anything.
Yeah, my recollection was that if our fee was higher than the counties, we got the differential, but I just don't know if we're at a higher rate. So,
We can check it
or
against the
if there's no
county.
charge to that. So let's, yeah, we can confirm that.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll move on to the expenses. These start on page 9 of your packet. I'm sorry, page 8 of your packet. And the first page there is all general fund. The first 2 pages actually are all general fund. Starting with the police department, 41% of the general fund is dedicated to the police department alone. And this department is within its budget, but it's trending a little bit high year to date. So I will be monitoring that throughout the year to see if we need to do any increases or just monitor their spending more closely. Down in the admin department, that consists of 21% of our general fund budget, and the spend is within that allowable amount. On the next page, we have a couple things I'd like to draw your attention to down in the street department. This is Fund 101.901. It'll be the bottom of page 9. Specifically, the contractual services for street where we budgeted $142,500. We've spent $79,000 of that, 55.5%. A large portion of that was paid for the Parkway Master Planning to CT Consultants. And I do believe there are some additional invoices that are still to be paid to CT. That may require an increase to the budget. I just wanted to draw your attention to that. You may see a request for an appropriation increase on that in the near future.
We say CT for Parkway planning as in the Parkway district plan?
Yeah.
What were we paying them for?
Yeah, we wouldn't have paid CT for the Parkway Master Plan, but for any involvement that Mr. Keeterly or others might have had that they would have reported. So it wouldn't have been of that level. So this might be MS. You might have been
$54,900 to CTs.
CT. So
I'll double check that, but I'm quite certain that's what it is.
I like a little bit of a breakdown for that. And I'll tell you this, if we're talking about like stakeholder meetings, it can't be it. This is for this year, right?
Yes.
mhm.
We haven't had any stakeholder meetings. Were we paying Bob Keeterly to be a stakeholder steering committee member?
Yeah, he was reporting his time. Yes.
He was reporting his time,
Mhm.
but he lives in Sunbury. Okay, I thought he was a volunteer on that, so.
But again,
$85,000.
it's not anywhere near
Like, what-
this, not anywhere near this number. So,
Right.
so yeah, we'll just look at it a little bit more closely, make sure we understand what that is.
Yes, I will.
I mean, the
do
other
that
thing they
again.
have been doing is, they've been doing some general, roadway network planning, but again, this is a high number for that, so.
It might be charged to the wrong project. If that's Sunbury Parkway planning,
It could be.
that could be different than Parkway District Plan. Parkway District Plan, I think of land use and the like. Sunbury Parkway planning, like right of way design, traffic counts, things like that. That would be, I would say, appropriate.
Many
MS
cases.
coded or they're just raking us over the coals. Let's ask Dan up on the witness stand tonight.
Yeah,
Well, we'll look at it more closely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not.
yes, we'll definitely get you an answer on that.
Thank you.
Directly below that line, the supplies street, we have spent $43,300 in just road salt and hauling salt so far here to date. Just wanted to bring your attention to that large number. So overall, in the general fund, we are within budget, but we're trending high.
Revenues are trending higher though.
Revenues are trending higher. Yes, that is true. And there was nothing else that I felt was warranted, a discussion on the expenses, but by all means, if there are any questions, I'm happy to respond or dig into to get more information for you.
I don't have any questions, but just out of curiosity, so now that we have a quarter under our belt, is there any particular area where we should look at next budget cycle and say, you know, we probably should think about this differently? Is there anything that's like you're looking at every month going, yeah, I think we should maybe have different glasses on when we look at this category?
Yeah, nothing comes to mind at the moment, but I do call out certain things in my budget file that I prepare in the final budget that I have for the prior year. I do keep notes so that when I prepare the next year's budget, I refer to those notes. Anything that would require modification or some type of change,
Yeah,
I do make note of those.
okay. Very good. Thank you.
Mhm.
I've got a quick question. This year, you said year to date, 47 new builds. Just out of curiosity, do you know what last year was?
I don't have that number on top of my head, but I'm sure we can get it.
I was gonna say, we do have a zoning report. I generally put that in the council packet every other week or every other meeting, so I can get that, and we've got a year to year comparison on
Are
that.
we up, do you know?
Oh, yeah, we're
We're,
definitely up over prior
It
years.
was, I mean, round numbers, it was 30 to 35,
I think
something
it
like
was
This year,
35.
huh?
Yeah.
So that concludes the expense and revenue comparison reports. Happy to move on to the bank and book reconciliation, if that's okay with you.
Mhm.
Okay. The bank and book reconciliation, we have a total of $21,792,682.87 in our bank balances as of March 31st. 10 million of that is in Fifth Third securities, and Fifth Third is averaging a 4.8% book yield right now, and that's the average of all of our portfolios held within Fifth Third securities. Star Ohio is at 6.7 million, and that is giving us a 5.46% 30-day yield, which is great. And then we have our balance at First Commonwealth Bank for our general operating account. Outstanding checks total $42,412.83. And the year-to-date income tax collections by category are listed there for you. 5-year trending history is listed as well. We are trending higher than last year, year-to-date, by about 20.7%. So we continue to move on the up and up there. Lastly, I believe the outstanding check report, or I'm sorry, the complete check report is included in your packet for your convenience. Please feel free to look at that and let me know if there are any questions. That's all I have to report tonight.
Any questions for Ms. Stefan? Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hey, if I'm not mistaken, I think that takes us to the end of the program tonight. So, okay, anybody have any new business or anything like to bring up before we adjourn?
Did you want to mention that we were awarded the money for the Galena Road? Does everybody on council know that?
Yeah, I think so. I do have that in the administrator's report for the council, that we did receive the emergency road repair grant from the Ohio Public Works Commission at the rate of 90% of the overall costs.
Great.
So that, which was our request.
Yeah.
So what would be relatively new information, I think, to the group is that in the council meeting in which we approved the emergency repair and the application, we did kind of cap out what we thought would be the upper end of the project at about $174,000. It ended up after contingencies and what have you to be more like in the 167,000. So we're below the number that we talked about, and like I said, 90% of that will be reimbursed to us. So and we have they've begun the road repair. In fact, I got a note that they've made pretty significant progress. So I'll talk to Dan just to make sure, and one of us will report at the full council meeting kind of where that stands.
Yeah, when that is approved, can you send out a quick email to us so that, I mean, when it's opened, pardon me.
It's open. Yeah.
'Cause I'm getting a lot of questions about that. I'm sure everyone is. So when it's good to go, I would appreciate knowing so I can let everyone know who's asking me.
Yep.
Thank you.
I know I've heard the mayor say this and I'll say it too, but thank you for being so quick and applying for that and getting movement on that. So I'm sure the residents are grateful that that's getting quick attention. So
Well, we appreciate council's quick action on that to be able to submit the application. So thank you.
I saw someone online said, I thought I heard it's gonna be 100 days. I said, whoa, we were getting our construction projects confused. This one is not gonna take 100 days.
Well, I do, when we first talked about it, the engineer, Mr. White, did kind of, I think, in a very conservative way.
Yeah.
Suggested that it may take.
Yeah, there's other projects going on in the
Yes.
community, larger community that.
okay.
Dana, I had a question about police, wages, and it's not wages necessarily, but their entire, fund. The police fund here, 101,521. So you were saying that it's 26% over forecast for like proportionally throughout the year. I see the two items you called out, the benefits related to the HSA. The other one was related to uniforms. But are other departments not seeing those same increases, or are they just out of proportion from other departments? Is that why you called police out specifically?
The only reason that those are specifically highlighted is because they are exceeding budget by more than 10%. So it's just a matter that they're exceeding budget by that amount, no other reason. Other departments may be exceeding as well or under budget, but maybe not by 10%. Another thing I've thought about is maybe putting a dollar amount exceeding on here as well, because you may not be that concerned about the uniforms, even though it is 150% over, the dollar amount isn't that significant. So the 150% looks astonishing, but when you look at the real dollars, it's really not that significant.
And it's a once a year thing. I mean,
Yes.
we paid for it. Unless we bring new officers on, we're not paying it again.
Correct.
Right. Same thing with HSA. I mean, it's twice a year disbursement. I'm trying to figure out how we're 26% over it, and I would have to go through line by line here. 26% over like the proportional time of the year, right? Like you took
It's
this.
year to date related, isn't it? I mean,
It is, yes, it's
Yeah,
year to date
okay.
and it's proportional. So it's 25% of the year. So I compare, if it's over 25%, which this is, you're looking at the total police department, right?
Yeah,
Is that where you're getting the 26? Yeah.
yeah, 26. I mean, we're 1% over forecast right now,
Yes,
and it's could be directly attributed to the large one-time expenses that we
Yes.
have. Okay.
correct.
All right, I just didn't hear that the first time you said it.
Oh, all right.
Good deal.
Yeah, it's still within budget, but just trending high.
There are some other one-time expenses coming up. I think Chief talked to you about that, a blood alcohol, a reader that I think the state is requiring we purchase. It's like $15,000. We'll have to figure out if we need to come back to council for that, or if we can get that within our budget, but I mean, the police,
don't you think if the state's requiring it, the state ought to pay for it?
I agree.
Yeah.
But there are other things like that. And I know when we get into budget discussions, I know Dave's called me out on this specifically, like, you know, hey, it looks like we're gonna end up upside down next year. And that's because we prudently forecast. I mean, that's my opinion. Like, we are very conservative on our revenue estimates, and we're pretty tight on our cost estimates. But when these one-time things come up, or you know, ad hoc during the year, these large expense items, it does throw things out of whack. And if we're looking at like a green red metric, yeah, it will show red, but you'll have to trust me on this. This will pan out okay, and has every year for the past 5 years. We're up 60% on income tax for the past 5 years. So
Yeah.
we're growing and we need to catch up. That's it. Thank you. That's all I had, John.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Dana.
It's a little unfair to the budgeting process to start looking at the numbers in a regular pattern when the bills don't come in a regular pattern. You kind of have to let it ride the wave a little way, so,
And the growth is outpacing every year. I mean, it's like,
yeah.
to Molly's point, like how much are we up last year? I mean, it's every year we're up like 20 to 40% on new builds. So that brings in new revenue, but also new liabilities as well.
I think the nice thing about these reports and they provoke discussion and understanding. So I think that's what's a very good benefit of that. So, okay, well, thank you both for your information this evening. If there's no other questions, I'll just ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Ayer,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
and Mr. Grumney.
Yes.
5 yeas, 6 yeas, we are approved, or we are adjourned.
Approved. Move to adjourn.
Get approved.